Okay, so we're going to discuss some examples where we're going to convert from a percent to a fraction, or perhaps maybe we're going from a fraction to a percent. And in each case, the decimal, think of the decimal as the middleman here. So we're going to discuss the relationship between percents, decimals, and fractions. Okay, so let's start off with, in this first one, we're going to start with the decimal. We need to make it a percent as well as a fraction. Okay, so let's start by going to a percent. And the easiest way to do this, to go from decimal to percent, is realizing that when we do that, we need to multiply a number by 100 when we put the percent sign on, because everything's always something per 100. Okay, so the 0.525, now by multiplying by 100, the quick way to do that would be to just take the decimal point and move it 2 places to the right. So that 0.525 in percentage is going to be 52.5%. Okay, so that's always the quickest way to do it. Okay. Now to go from a decimal to a fraction, basically if you realize what decimal place, what position you're going to, and you think of the name of it, well, that'll give you your fraction. Okay, so we're going to the third decimal place here, which means we're going to the thousandths place, which means 0.525 is 525 out of 1,000. Okay, so what you can do is, one of the quickest ways to kind of think about this is, however many decimal points you have, that's how many zeros you need in the denominator. Okay, if we had 2 decimal points, let's say we had 0.52, well, we're going to the hundredths place, so we're going 52 out of 100. Okay, but this case we're going to the thousandths place, so it's 525 out of 1,000, which, as always, if you have a fraction, make sure you reduce it, and I'll leave it up to you to reduce it down to, it should reduce down to 21 over 40. So just to start off with, that's if you have a decimal. Okay, so now we're going to start with a fraction and eventually end up with a percent. Alright, so let's start with 3/4. But of course we need to go from a fraction to a decimal. Remember, decimal is always the middleman. Okay, so what we do is we're going to treat it like a division problem. Okay, remember, a fraction is a way of expressing division. So we're going to do 3 divided by 4. Okay, now obviously 4 doesn't go into 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a decimal point here. Okay, and we'll keep the decimal point lined up for our quotient as it is with the dividend. Okay, so that way we know where our digits are going to go. So our first number here, we're going to figure out how many times 4 goes into 30. That number goes above the 0, 1 place after the decimal point. And 4 goes into 30 7 times. Multiply through. And then when we subtract, we get a 2. So we have a remainder, which is going to tell us you need to keep going. So we put in a manufacture another 0. There really is another 0 there. We can put as many as we want. We drop that 0 down, so now we're going to figure out 4 goes into 20 5 times. When you multiply through, 5 times 4 gives you 20, and we don't have a remainder. So we know that 3/4 is 0.75 as a decimal. And now we take that decimal to make it a percent, move it 2 places to the right. And that'll become 75%. Alright, this next one may be the trickiest one that we do. We're going to take 66 2/3%, and we're going to figure out what it is as a decimal and what it is as a fraction. Now, I know I've been saying throughout that, decimal's been the middleman, with the exception to this one. This one, we're actually going to go from the percent to the fraction, and then we'll go from the fraction to the decimal. Okay, so most of the time, decimal is the middleman. Okay, except for this case here. So the way we take care of this one, 66 2/3%, here's the quickest way to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to make that 66 2/3 into a mixed number. I'm sorry, improper. We're going to take, it is a mixed number, we're going to make it an improper fraction. Okay, now 66 2/3 on its own is 200 over 3. Okay, now it is still technically a percent. So we're going to get it out of percent. We're going to actually make it a fraction. The way we do that, now normally we take a number and we multiply it by 100 to get its percentage. But we're going to take it out of percent, so it means we're actually going to divide by 100 or multiply by 1 over 100. Okay, now when you multiply these fractions together, remember one of the things you can do is, instead of multiplying right away, just go ahead and cross cancel. So 200 over 100 will reduce down to 2 over 1. Okay, so now we can just multiply right away. And when you do this, 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, so we actually have the fraction first in this case. Okay, so 66 and 2/3 percent on its own is 2/3. Okay, now we need to take that 2/3 and we need to make it a decimal. So remember how to do that. And no, this isn't a square root, that's my fault. We're going to treat it like a division problem. So it's 2 divided by 3, and 3 doesn't go into 2, so we're going to put a decimal point in here, put a 0, so now we're going to treat it as 3 going into 20. We know it goes in 6 times, multiply through, get 18, and then when you subtract, you get 2. Okay, so now let's keep going. So the 0 comes down, so now 3 goes into 20. We already know this goes in 6 times. When we multiply through, get 20, and then we subtract 20 minus 18, gives us the 2. We got a remainder of 2 again. So we're going to keep going, drop the 0 down. And then 3 goes into 20. Probably sound like a broken record at this point. 3 goes into 26 times. And 6 times 3 is 18. And it comes out to 2. Okay, now we can keep doing this pretty much forever. Okay, you're noticing, like I said, I sounded like a broken record here. This is going to keep happening. All right, we're going to keep getting a remainder of 2. It just happens, so happens with this division here that it's going to keep getting a remainder of 2. So we drop down the 0, so we're going to get 20, and then 3 goes in 26 times, so we're going to keep getting 6, and it's going to keep going forever. All right. So what this means is, let me do it in a different color. My fault here. So to show that, since the 6 repeats forever, it's going to be 0.6, and you put a bar above the digit that repeats. Okay, so if you ever have digits that repeat in the sequence, put a bar over it to show that it repeats forever. So 0.6 repeating is the way that reads. Okay, now we're going to look at 5/6 as a fraction. We're going to figure out what that is as a decimal and what that is as a percent. Okay, so now we start with the fraction. We're going to go from fraction to decimal first, which means we are going to treat this as a division problem. So we're going to do 5 divided by 6. Now obviously 6 doesn't go into 5, so we'll do this again. Manufacture our decimal point. Okay, so 6 goes into 50 8 times. Multiply down. 8 times 6 is 48. And then we subtract, we get a remainder of 2. Okay, put a 0 in here. So now 6 goes into 20 3 times. 3 times 6 is going to give us 18. And we do the subtraction, we're going to get a remainder of 2. So because we have a remainder, we're going to do the division again. So 20 divided by 6. 6 goes into 23 times. Multiply through, we get 18. We get a remainder of 2. So here we go. This looks like we're going to get this repeated pattern again. And I'll just do it one more time to confirm that. But you see we're getting the same remainder, dropping down the same digit, doing the same division over and over. So this is going to happen again. We're 20 divided by 6. 3. 3 times 6 is 18. And then we can go through and the remainder is 2. Okay? So we see, and if you want to keep doing the division, you're going to see that it's going to be a 3 repeating forever. All right? So that means as a decimal, okay, it's going to be 0.83, but just the 3 has the bar above it because it's only that digit that's repeating. All right? But now we're going to take this 0.83 repeating and we're going to make it a percent. All right, now here's what we're going to do just to help us out. We know the 3 repeats, okay? we know that the decimal point has to move 2 places, so what I'm going to do, just to show you, is I'm going to put the extra 3 on and put the bar above it just to show that that repeats. Okay. We still need to move the decimal point 2 places. Okay. So we know it's going to be 83.3 repeating percent. Okay. So I wanted to have the 83 on its own, and then I need the 0.3, but the bar is above that other 3 on the other side of the decimal point to show that it repeats forever. Okay. So it's 83.3 repeating percent. And lastly, we're going to take 100% and we're going to turn that into a decimal and a fraction. Okay, you'll notice something interesting happens with 100%. Well, 100%, we're going to go from percent to decimal. Okay, so going from percent to decimal. Now we've been going from decimal to percent. When we had the decimal first, we move it 2 to the right, put the percent sign on. When we go from percent to decimal, we're going to go backwards. We're going to move it 2 to the left, and then drop the percent sign. So 100% as a decimal is just 1. Okay. And now from decimal to fraction, well, this doesn't have any decimal points afterwards. It's just a whole number. It's just 1. Which, if you want to put it over 1, this may sound redundant, but 1 over 1 is just 1. So even as a fraction, we get 1. Now this should make sense in terms of being a decimal and a fraction, that 100% is 1. It's kind of like you think about if somebody offered you cake and you ate 100% of the cake, you ate the whole cake. You ate 1 cake. Okay? So I just wanted to show you that one quickly. Okay, and that concludes our discussion of percents, decimals, and fractions.